So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live show with live peoples. I've purchased 6 Winsor Newton watercolour markers, my usual colours, which are lemon yellow, cadmium red, alizarin crimson and cerulean blue. And they didn't have my French ultramarine, so the next best thing is the dioxidine purple. And that means that if I mix the dioxidine purple with cerulean blue, I will get a purple blue, and French ultramarine is a purple blue. So I had to kind of rejiggle that one a little bit, but from these 6 I've got some really nice colours. So these are Winsor & Newton watercolour markers, and they have a brush tip at one end and a bullet tip at the other. So I thought I'd have a bit of a play with them. Now I had a really good experience. I love the colours, and I've scratched the colours onto a palette and mixed them with my 6 colours. But I wanted to know how good they were to kind of manipulate on the page. So what we normally do with the Derwent pencils and the Neos is we're scratching dry pigment onto dry paper. This particular way we've got a wet pigment on a dry paper, and then if it dries out, I wonder, it will reconstitute, but how good is it at not kind of making too much of a mark? So I'm hoping for that like strong watercolour effect. So I thought I'd just have a bit of a play with colour. So again, you've got to think about colour here. So we're not thinking like greens and oranges and things. So if we have the cadmium red, and that's the orange, and then we put a blue in there, but we put the purple blue. So if we put the purple blue, we might want the colder yellow. So in theory we've kind of got to make an orange, and then we're going to put a purple blue into the orange. I've just had a thought though. Just had a thought about this page is grunge. So let me have a bit. I'm just going to have a play. I got these out about a couple of hours ago, so I've done a couple of things with them. So I've got my Derwent #1 brush. So I'm going to wet the yellow and the purple. Now, because it's drying, we really need to rub it, but of course that's what we can't do on a colour page. So I think, turn that over, I don't want it to go through, so we'll try it a different way. So we've got a bit of yellow in there, and I'll put a bit of purple. So let's see if we can get some good colours, because we don't have the luxury of being able to rub, so it's never going to be, because the watercolour, as soon as the marker hits, it's going to dry out. Now you do pick up colour. Oh, perhaps if I had a wet brush, that might actually help. So the easy way to do this is, if you unscrew these Derwent ones, you can do it with the others, but this one is easier. You squeeze it and you tip it upside down in your water pot. Tip it the right way up so the water goes to the bottom. Squeeze it again, tip it upside down, squeeze it again, tip it upside down. So 3 times and you fill your water brush. You can't do that with a lot of them, but you can with the dough because it's a softer one. And now that lasts quite a long time because it's full of water now. That's one of my easy tricks. So I squeeze so I get water out, and then I twist it on a baby wipe, because if you activate it you get more water, but if you just twist the end you don't seem to get as much water. And I do like the Derwent #1 watercolour brush because it lets the least amount of water out, which is very good for colour books. So let's have another play. We'll have a bit of a play here. And I'm trying to do a bit of colour mixing. Actually, no, I want to do it actually on the... No, it's not going to work. So I do love these for colours. That's quite nice. Oh, so that works lovely. And again, really strong pigments. But what we can't do is rub up and down. So that was quite nice. So we got some nice colour in there. So I'll try this one and we'll see what happens. And again, you know, I'm rubbing up and down. It's a colour page. So let's try a different technique. Let's try actually mixing it while it's there, and then just drawing that out a bit. I think because as much as I love doing this, and again it certainly doesn't like wet on wet, it's the fact that we are using a wet medium. So it's not a dry medium, it's a wet medium, and we're putting a wet medium on a dry page, and then we're wetting it again, and of course colour pages don't really like that. So we'll try it with a brush, because I've been using a water brush. So we'll try it with a brush. So we'll put 3 colours down. So this is just an experiment to find out how we can kind of manipulate our gorgeousness of colour. So again, you get a bit better chance with this one then. It's a bit softer than the water brush. And let's have a look at this, actually just touching the tip, see if that makes, that's quite soft. It's getting stronger. So we could have I'd wet the page. That probably wasn't a good idea. So you can get some nice colours in there. So they do melt. It just depends on how good the page is of what you can get out of there. So quite unusual colours. There are lots of other colours. So you've got browns and greens, things. I'm mixing my own colours. I might just try them on the palette. So I bought this palette to use. And I've scratched some colour out. So all you do is you want the brush tip And I'm going over the cadmium yellow, that's the darker yellow. So there's quite a lot of colour on here. I'm using the purple, and then I'm going to put purple here because I don't have that French ultramarine. So then I've got the cerulean blue, and then I'm going to put cerulean blue here. We have the cadmium red, which is a very strong opaque, and alizarin crimson, which is very strong, but it does seem that little bit thinner, but I don't think it is. I think it's just the pigment. Remember, these are professional watercolours, so it's the pigment that's different. So I'm going back to my number 1 water brush and put that to one side. So now I can mix the purple with the cerulean blue and get a purple blue. You might want that a little bit, just a little bit bluer. So that's like it's quite watered down, but it's quite nice. So if you put that next to the purple, it's a blue. Now I've used that, so let's go stronger. So we want to make a stronger mix. That's the purple. Obviously, if I had the French ultramarine, I wouldn't need to do this. And this time I'm using just a damp rigger brush. So there's not as much water. It's basically just these colours moving together. So this is the consistency of 2 markers. So again, that's quite nice and dark. And if I just put that one next to this one. So I like them. I like mixing the colours. And we've mixed some nice greens up here. So, oops, trying to hold everything. So we've got that lovely yellow. And then we can touch that red, and they are really, really nice, strong colours. And we can kind of mix them on the page. The one thing we can't do though is just rub too much. So this works quite well as long as you understand you are on a colour page. So I thought I would just experiment a little bit with this, so we can get that grungy effect that's quite nice, that I like to do. And the colours are quite nice as well, so there's something really nice about working with professional watercolours. And then we've got that paler blue, cerulean blue. When the cerulean blue kind of pales, it's very, very soft. It's quite nice to kind of build some colours up, and then we can mix all sorts of colours together to get a grungy purple. So the light soft rubbing of a paintbrush is fine. The scrubbing of a water brush it doesn't particularly like that. So we've got some nice greens that I've made. Now you can get these pens in lots and lots of different colours, but I've made these greens. I've made both these greens, and I love making my own greens. So I don't think there isn't a colour that I can't make with this combination. But I think there's about 35 colours, maybe 40 colours in this particular bit. So again, you know, we're grunging that down with a bit of purple, so that looks quite nice. Looks like a natural shadow. And we can bring strong colour in if we want to a bit later. So we can get some quite nice colours. Oh, Suzanne says there's some Spectrum Noir brought out a graphy tint. Is it a graphy tint? Oh, tinted graphite. I love tinted graphite. We were talking about grunging, so these other particular ones here. So I actually kind of like working from a palette because again this is a wet watercolour, so it's quite nice to work. And just see if we can do the stronger ones. So there's a bullet tip, and I think I did this before the bullet tip, but again they're not really designed for colour books. Now you can mix them like this. You can mix them with the tips. And they soon go back, but you can go back into them and do other things. Oopsie. So you can do other things. So that's a purple and the yellow mixed, and I made the orange purple. And you can use them as a marker if you want, I think, and kind of then go in there. I did have a bit of grunge on that one, I'm afraid. So if you put the yellow on one side of there and the blue on the other side, kind of mush them together. You can do that. I think it's just the fact that you're rubbing on a colour page, and it's a little bit wetter than I like to work, but I do love the colours, and you've got all the watercolour effects that you would traditionally, so you've got the best of both worlds. And I think you've probably got that kind of you've got that marker effect as well, if you want that really strong. So the one thing that I wanted to look at was that you can use these because they don't go through. So it's a marker, but it's a water-based marker, so you could use them as a marker. Let's see if we can go from yellow to dark. So so that's very strong. You can mix them actually on the page. So you've got that versatility, and then when you turn it over, there's absolutely nothing there. That's where I was working, just there. So there's nothing there at all. So that's quite nice that, you know, you have technically a marker in a colour book. So there's lots of different ways to use these. I bought them as a watercolour to get all these lovely watercolour effects and to blend colours together. But you can use them as you can blend the markers together in a colour book as long as you don't rub too much. So again, that is quite fantastic. So let's go from one colour to another. Let's see if we can do another one very quickly. We've got, I think we'll probably start with the darkest colour first. And I'm using the bullet tip pen here, so yeah, you've got to be a bit careful because again you're rubbing. So we do it with the brush end. Let's see what the brush end does. That's soft. So we've got a marker that we can use in a colour book, so that's pretty cool. I would think if you were doing some flowers and things, and then of course you can always kind of move it. Now, because I've worked in this area, I should have left it a little bit maybe, but go back into this red one, pick the colour up, because of course these are professional watercolours. Now it is a bit soggy down there, so really I should go somewhere else. Typically if you do over wet your page, you know, you can go somewhere else and work. But you can pick a little bit of pigment up, but again we've got to remember not to kind of scrub too much. Let me see what we've got. Oh, there's a shell. So this one is actually graphitint. Is this one? That's graphitint. I wonder if we could do the grunge thing on the other side. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I might try with the water brush. Just be a little bit careful. So we've got purple and yellow. So we could use purple and yellow. So and if you're going straight away, you can get that going, but then you've kind of got to really just leave it. Yeah, it doesn't go through it. I wouldn't think you could rub too much, but you could definitely build up a really nice effect. And so you're working with markers in a colour book, so that is pretty cool, I think. I don't know if anybody else has got any markers that will work in a colour book. So that's not using water, but again we've got the water in the watercolour. These are ready, these are water markers, so they're ready wet, if that's the right phrase. So again we can go in there with this dark. You're a bit careful because again we're rubbing, and we don't want to be rubbing a wet anything on a colour page, but that's very quick, very easy, and the marker runs back to yellow, and it's here. Sorry, it's there, beg your pardon. It's there. There's absolutely nothing. Can't even show, it doesn't even show through, doesn't the purple? So that's very good because it's a very strong dioxidine purple, is that? I've kind of started on this colour scheme now. So I'll do this. And I'm going to go back in there and put the darker purple in. So we can get some really nice effects on this. So I'm very impressed, I have to say. Really impressed, because I'm going to use the bullet end to just go in there. And it's wet, I should let it dry, but it'll give that little bit of a bleed effect, which looks quite, I think that looks quite nice. Get some real nice shadows under there if you wanted. Because we've got that bullet end, you can get quite a bit of nice detail in there as well. And I'm only playing with two colours, so we've got, could do a red and an orange. So let's have a look at this one. That's quite a nice mix, is that one. That's quite nice, is that? So if you've got the red and you, if you have the red, so I think you'd have to work in smaller areas, but if you have the blue and you put that through it, you get the green. And we'll work backwards. Again, though, you've got to remember it's wet in wet, so you just don't want to rub too much. You've got to remember it's a colour page. So if you go over that colour, you get the darker colour. And you would be able to go over it again, but I would suggest you let it dry, because again it's wet on wet, so our colour pages don't normally like that. But we can put that in. So I actually quite like the fact I am working with, I used to like the fact it was a perpetual marker. I've actually got a marker, so I'm working with a marker, so that's pretty cool, is that? And I only have a limited palette through choice. I wanted to make my own colours. So there's that ultramarine peeping through, and you've got some gorgeous colours there. So you can really kind of play about with these. Get some quite nice effects. And you are playing with a marker on a colour book page. So I kind of like that, and it's a long time since I've had some really bright in your face colours. So I need to oops, I always pick up the wrong end there. It's a brush and a make our orange. So that was one of my first plays with my Winsor Newton water-based markers in Imagimorphia. Thanks for watching.